Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Divest series of the American Food Consumer System. Today's a little bit more of a vulnerable share, one that's taking a side trip from the American food system into Big Pharma in America. And this is a little scratching the surface of my experience in my youth and upbringing of Big Pharma's attempt in Western medicine to cure or mask the symptoms of physical trauma, emotional impacts, mental stagnation from those emotional wounds and physical trauma, as well as spiritual indoctrination and false programming. So kind of jumping in about my journey, I've talked a little bit about kind of my health journey of in my youth having a collection of traumas young that set off a virus within my system. And that led to the toxic food in America feeding the virus and my addiction to that food because of the way that the food was created to become addictive for us to continue consuming. And that led to inflammation and, if you want to call it obesity, it led to a lot of health problems within myself. I, at my heaviest, was about 300 pounds. And that was a rock bottom moment of digestive distress, parasitic impacts, colitis developing before nipping it in the bud and ending that. I had eczema, asthma, allergies, just all of the things, a lot of what would be considered as autoimmune, gut-related issues. They were stemming from childhood traumatic experiences that my soul veiled me from so that I would be able to continue in life versus getting really set into self-destructive patterns, which a lot of humans suffer from. So some of these in here are, I'm going to go through them because this was what I went through as a child, right? And some of this is working backward in time. And I've gone through a lot of just like what I was prescribed just blindly without ever really knowing my history and understanding that I was not ever communicated about long-term side effects with things. I feel like the most imprinted memory that I have really let go of as a child was to resolve my eczema or dermatitis, water blisters on my hands. I was prescribed a prescription called Protopic. And Protopic was a steroid cream that I slathered on my skin, my hands. It probably went all over my body, probably internally too. Like I was just not a great child on the contamination side when it came to medication. I didn't know. And I used to tell myself each night before going to bed that the burning of my hands would end in about 15 minutes and I'd be able to go to sleep. And I would go to sleep just in pain, burning a lot of times, night after night for years, because I had these things going on. And in my body, I didn't know that I had a virus that was being exacerbated by reliving trauma and being bullied through school, to the chlorination in the water affecting my skin and really like opening areas for toxins to come out. And so those things that I've used to mask the symptoms, they just inflamed me. All of these are petroleum-based products that were designed to have a human become addicted to them so that they would continue to pay for the product and that mask a symptom rather than resolving and solving these autoimmune diseases that are not something that we have to live with forever. And I am a testament to that being true. So some of these, like a lot of the inhalants, I have 3 different types. And this is, I had Western medical insurance for my entire life until I was wrongfully terminated, and am now still in Western medical, yet not engaging in the pharmaceutical industry because it's just not for me anymore. So looking at some of these inhalers, there's a lot of a tendency to become dependent or addicted. I was. When I was playing football and being traumatized by doing that, and leading to things like claustrophobia and exercise-induced asthma because my heart rate would go up. I had holds in my lungs from an auto collision. So I was using about 1 lung and maybe a third. So I was down from 200% of my lung capacity to 60-ish, and being trapped in something that I didn't want to even do. It led to a lot of using, not working with, using and abusing the inhalers as a way to come back from what I felt like I couldn't breathe, or I was gonna die, or I'm now getting lightheaded. It can become an addictive tendency. And that's when you use more than 2 times per week, which is poor asthma control. Girl, I was using dozens of inhalant sprays multiple times a day. Well, at least multiple times a week. That was not controlled asthma. Something more was going on. And you can have a lot of central nervous system, tremors, nervousness, headaches, and dizziness. I had all of that. You can get rapid heart rate or palpitations. I had that. You can get muscle cramps or aches. I mean, it's kind of hard to know when you're rolling your ankles or getting hit in football, whether or not it's from that or your medications. Throat irritation or cough, insomnia, dry mouth, nausea. You can have serious side effects such as angina, high heart rate, paradoxal bronchitis, bronchospasms. You can have situations lead to severe anxiety or low potassium, which end up creating bronchial spasms, which lead to asthma. So not only are you being prescribed something that you don't know what's in it, I don't know what the chemical compositions are in this, I just pumped it into my body because I was told by my healthcare providers that this was what I needed, when it can actually lead to bronchospasms, which can be asthma attacks. So you don't even know if you're having an asthma attack because it's an environmental toxin, because you're having a stress response, or your medication is causing it. Like, y'all, it has taken a journey to work through that and wean off the dependency to these. And my encouragement is that if you have a child or you are suffering from asthma-like symptoms, begin early with things like breath work and communicating about what is truly going on within, such that a dependency to these is not something that gets developed. Because even in anxiety, things like an EpiPen are what I was prescribed because I was starting to have anaphylactic reactions to poor quality shellfish, specifically shrimp. And it was in Tacoma when I was at work getting lunch, trying to patron the businesses, and I get either bad shrimp or really low quality, and I have an anaphylactic reaction. Now I'm prescribed EpiPens, so I'm worried about how am I, as a boy in this society, supposed to carry this around when I don't have a purse? Or like, where do I have them? Do I have them at my house? Do I have them at the office? Do I have it in the car? Do I have it on the go? Stress, anxiety. It leads to just unnecessary things. Let's see what this, it can be used for things like insect bites, stings. Bees were a really big thing. I just kind of got that program from my grandfather who was allergic to bees. Severe asthma attacks if you do need help regenerating the ability to flow in your airways. And then severe allergic reactions. It's just, for me, I know what I'm allergic to. I've had tests done, and there are necessary pieces of where this can be beneficial, yet again, I don't know what's in it, and all it is plastic, petroleum based, and it probably is going to expire at some point so that I'm forced to buy another one. And some of us in this country, in this world, don't have health insurance. So how are people able to have access to these? I remember sidebar memory of getting these inhalers, and I remember this woman at the counter. I'm at a Walgreens in my hometown, and here I am, a child, a product of Western medical health insurance, never had to worry about the cost of things. My parents paid for that, and yet I still was all stressed out about money. I'm standing there getting it probably for sports, and this woman is hard of breathing, and I am, as an empath, struggling to not take on her experience as my own and then have empathetic breathing problems. She had no health insurance and no way to afford this. And these were probably like, for me, I feel like our copay at the time was like $5 or $15. So I'm getting this for like pocket change in America. Otherwise, it's like almost $1,000 for an inhaler just so someone can breathe. That's not right. That's not right. And when our food system in America is leading to things like this, our vaccine system in America is leading to conditions and health issues, these are all downstream ways to mask the problem that generates billions and billions, if not trillions, of dollars of income. All of us as humans in America are looked at as dollar signs. We're looked at as ways to prescribe a system to pay for all of this, to funnel money away from things that could be used to cure these conditions and stop them from being generated. Meanwhile, we're just given these products that are created off of petroleum, which is harming our environment. So that's the sidebar. But things like Benadryl. When I was a kid, well, this particular one, this is Italian Benadryl, because I interacted with a known allergen now at the time in Italy, and I was having anaphylactic shock. And I had to get the Italian version of Benadryl. And it wasn't until I got into really this research, and very recently, where I've been communicated that Benadryl is now being defined as something that can lead to dementia within humans. And as a child in Tacoma, a very, very toxic environment, y'all, if you aren't aware, Do your own research. It's toxic here. I know I'm still here. I'm just trying to be grounded with the people. I was injected with allergen shots. So I was injected with environmentals a lot in my youth. And to manage the side effects of them, because they really affected my sensitive little system, I was pumped with Benadryl. It would knock me out. I'd fall asleep on the way home from Tacoma out to where I lived, and I'd be asleep for hours. I'd have no idea what happened. I'm in this brain fog because it leads to brain fog. It's got dyes in it, petroleum-based, and it affects cognitive memory. And I look back at that and think to myself, I'm so grateful that my parents had access to these systems that they believed were what I needed. And then I think, what was it? What was the real problem? Was it because the environment was so toxic and there were all of these harmful chemicals that were in my house and in my school and in the cars that we drove and everything? Or was it more than that? Was it the air, the water, the food? It's all of the above. Because I look at these things of like ibuprofen and Advil and Tylenol, and I remember kids in high school addicted to Advil, the pain relief. And we now know there's dyes, there's gels, there's petroleum-based things in there that are masking whatever is really causing us pain in our bodies. And if it's something we aren't feeling safe to talk about, I wish that to no longer be held for people. And I'm just gonna pull out some other ones here. This is, these are like more intimate in my, my vulnerable share here of when I was, so the virus that I had as a child is, I believe, was HSV, herpes simplex virus. A lot of humans have this, along with Epstein-Barr, that we just aren't aware of. And when it's ancestral, meaning it comes from your mother through birth, and that's been inherited through generations or one, it's a different type of virus to fight off because you have a bit of immune response to it and you kind of go through it. I contracted a separate strain of herpes simplex virus, and I believe this to be herpes simplex virus 1+, as my soul has told me, that it is a stronger strain of the virus and it's different. And it really knocked my system out of whack. And I was prescribed valacyclovir. At first, I was prescribed acyclovir. And acyclovir has rare side effects such as suicidal thoughts or behaviors, hallucinations, aggression or agitation, delirium or confusion, depression or psychosis. Now, there's a lot of anxiety about contracting a virus and having to go through that process. However, I did experience the negative side effects of suicidal thoughts and ideation. And it was a very traumatic time in my life. It was during COVID. And it was a period where I grappled with the real first thoughts of suicide over having contracted a virus. And I just remember saying, no, that's not okay. And I talked to my healthcare provider. I communicated what the situation was. And I was taken seriously enough to be prescribed a different version of acyclovir. I got valacyclovir. And I question why. Why was valacyclovir created over acyclovir? Was it because suicidal thoughts, ideation, and action were taking place by dear souls who have a sensitive system and were impacted by this? that's not okay. Because what I got on the other end was these big pills that are dyed with blue that go right through the blood-brain barrier. And I was on a very high dose of this. And with that, the aggression, the confusion, the delirium, the aggravation that can happen with this, because your body is running, a virus is running on in your body. And for me, it was settling in the heart. That's my truth. And it was hard to have a virus, as I think about it on a chakra energy based level. Your heart is hurt and your system is pumping this blood through your body, and now you've got this medication trying to knock it out. You've got corpse cells, so the virus is being taken out, and now you've got corpse cells to process out, or they're settling in your body, in your joints, in your muscles, in the detox pathways of your body that are strained. And having had strained detox pathways, they just settled and built inflammation, especially around leaky gut, from all the combination of things. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. And I know I'm talking fast, and I slow down because I just look at these and they remind me of difficult times in my life. That I really hope we as humans are not going to perpetuate moving forward. And another big one for me was having had elective cosmetic surgery to expand and move forward my upper palate. It's called maxillofacial surgery. And that's where the skull comes from, because it reminds me of the sacred remembrance of your truth while not holding on to a narrative that keeps the trauma in the body. Because I cannot change that I had surgery. What I can change is the hold that it's had on my body. Because something traumatic happened during my surgery, and I've not had the ability to communicate with that surgeon to really ask, what really happened? Whether it was the cadaver bone being put in my body that I wasn't communicated about, slipping of tools during the surgery and marring up my teeth, which I could feel because my tongue explores, or the nerve damage that happened that I was unaware of what was going to take place. And now, granted, I was not a very conscious or discerning human at the time, yet these are things that are basic knowledges of what's going to happen to your body that was just not communicated. And when that happened, I ended up having a nosebleed, because basically my nose, my sinus bones in all of here were taken off and manipulated and then screwed back in, pinned back in. And I ended up pushing my recovery before senior year of college too hard, too fast. And I went to change a dressing of clotting in my nose, and I pulled out a blood clot, a significant blood clot. And I knew when I did that I had done something not great. And my nose did not stop bleeding for 13 hours. And I was transported to a local hospital, and then they tried everything they could to stop it, and it was a very traumatic experience. And I ended up getting carted to the hospital where the surgery happened, and I was in recovery for a pretty long time. And after that, I was prescribed Valium to settle my heart rate. And that was, I feel, pushed on me by those medical providers. And it felt, when I reflect, I can visually see this nurse saying, getting really in my face and pushing Valium on me to settle my energy, and what felt like a way to protect whatever had happened during the surgery that was leading to these aftermath complications. And that's this one, diazepam or Valium. And it worked. It zoned me out. It calmed down my high stress energy, and those of my friends who went to college with me knew how stressed out I was. And I remember that within a month of being prescribed the Valium, and I still have a few of these pills because the last one I took was traumatic and I said no more. I mixed it with alcohol, which is not something you want to do. And I zoned out, and my soul came through me to channel a message, a former version of myself, because I do believe in reincarnation, soul lineage, and past lives on planet Earth. And that soul energy came through to channel a work of art to remind myself of what I've been through in this life, and to remember to listen to myself, and that it's okay when you stumble along the way, because rock bottom doesn't have to hit you and keep you going down. You can make the choice to course correct, and that's what I said I would do. It was slow and sure, and so a month after that, it's been 11 years, and I'm where I'm at now. And that's a testament to the fact that it takes linear time to heal and work through trauma, and the body requires linear time. And the more things that you can do to not have these get into your system, the better you are, because they are addictive. And so many of us humans have similar stories of loved ones who've been impacted by addictions, overdoses, whatever you want to label for your story. It affects and ruins the lives of a lot for a temporary period of time, and some aren't able to come back from that. And that's what I hope to, in this vulnerability of sharing, is remind people that it's okay if these things have happened. It's not something to shame yourself about. And for all of us, remembering that there is no God that shames you for having been addicted to a human-created pharmaceutical with the intention of keeping you addicted to that. That's my firm belief, and you can make your own decisions, yet pharmaceuticals weren't talked about in the Bible because they didn't exist. And my journey was to experience what humans created in the last 2,000 years. And with that, I found that it's extremely toxic and difficult to participate in because of the misinterpretations and the systems of oppression that have been built for us to be addicted to things that just have all these complications and get trapped within our system that require active participation to detoxify from. And that's where we're at on this journey. We're on detoxification. and healing the body, because we don't need medication to do that. Medication is a tool and a resource to bridge yourself to stability for healing. And the next series of pharmaceuticals, which are a number of these containers, whether it's all of this stuff for diarrhea or digestive health issues, colitis, parasites, bacteria, water contamination, food contamination from other countries. It's a story about trauma. And I'm opening up about my own, especially in this video, it's very vulnerable, and opening up that when I became aware that I was being actively discriminated for based on my protected classes, which would be things like sexual orientation, sexual expression, gender identity, gender expression, race, marital status, age. The list goes on. Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 will tell you that. When I became aware of that and started speaking out about my truth, I was mentally manipulated. I was gaslit. I was retaliated against. I was discriminated against, and I experienced extremely hostile and toxic work behaviors. And I was lied to. I was just straight up lied to. And I had an awakening where I contemplated life again. For a second time, very empathetically, of being in an isolated environment, of coming to terms with the fact that my employer heard that I was being discriminated against, believed me, believed that the claims themselves were alarming, and yet they hid behind the truth that they had put me in a working position that did not protect me based on their policy guidelines. And I didn't know this for another 8 months, almost 9 months. So life happened, and I sat there and was forward projecting. I was just cascaded into this projection of my life of I had a choice to say something or be quiet. And I chose to say something because I was taught by my employer to say something when illegal behavior were taking place. And I sat there and contemplated that I was going to lose my job because I had spoken out. And I sat there and contemplated the projection of my reality of, do I just sit there and take this? Do I just accept discrimination from a group of people who saw me in that role as a hindrance to their profit, and my sexual orientation, marital status, age, and every other thing about me that they could pry at to make themselves feel better about the role they were playing, to construct, poorly I might add, a poorly designed streetcar transportation system in Tacoma. And the forward projection I had of, I'm being silenced for doing my job as a traffic safety and transportation operations engineer for the city of Tacoma. Voicing that there's design issues, there's construction issues, and there are financial issues. And I was not alone in expressing those truths, and yet I was severely impacted. And that led to being hospitalized on my own to protect my well-being. And I went through the journey of accepting and embracing medication to be a bridge to get me through. And those medications were to support the PTSD, the mental strain, and ground me back into the body. And those medications, what they did, they worked to basically shut my brain down, turn it off, and stop the mental spirals that were happening, because I'm going through years, decades of a future forward life that isn't going to happen, and processing all of that while trying to stay in the job that I had, that I loved, and watching myself go through an ego death and experiencing my husband go through that with me, and seeing him watch that and realizing our lives were never going to be the same. And I was so clung to the negative side of that, right? Not the positive. And God alive, that medication really impaired things. And I was discriminated against for it. I wasn't given an opportunity to communicate that this is what's going on. My employer made everything about my mental health, that I was having these needs for breaks, even though I was on protected federal leave, and they made it about my mental health, while skirting any fact that they had culpability, because they knew that I, as an employee, and I'm just a microcosm of the macrocosm employees of the city of Tacoma, that no one is protected from discrimination or harassment. No one. Because of the way they do business. The city of Tacoma hires out third-party contractors to facilitate the work, and they have no responsibility or ability to protect you if discrimination or hostile work environments take place. And so meanwhile, I'm trying to do a civic duty to my role as a public servant, and I'm being treated as if I am trying to do anything of the sort. And to name these medications, for those of you who have gone through this as well, to know that there's someone on the other side of this that's gone through the bridge of the medications, and that it isn't forever, and you can work yourself into a grounded state to not have to carry that through. And again, this is not medical advice or guidance, legal advice or guidance. This is my experience of what I've consumed based on what was prescribed to me, based on my own experiences of trauma. So I had escitalopram, which is Lexapro. That's for anxiety, PTSD, that I had because of the transportation safety system. I'm projecting out that the Hilltop streetcar in Tacoma can derail around this curve because of the amount of joints and the poor quality of design and construction. And I'm just seeing all of these potential catastrophes of transportation systems, and I'm simultaneously being silenced for doing my role to protect the community when the company doesn't care. There is no concern for it, or system or culture to be able to embrace that. So those things can lead to GI issues, which I had, nausea, I had diarrhea, I had dry mouth, appetite changes. I don't know, I've kind of always liked to eat, right? But your central nervous system, you can have headaches, insomnia, fatigue, drowsiness. In the sexuality department, you can have low libido, delayed orgasms, or erectile issues. Your mood, you can have nervousness, restlessness, initial agitation from it going into your system. Weight, you can have long-term impacts of weight gains or losses. And I can tell you, that's because sometimes the medication can make it such that you want to eat. And now you're packing on cells and inflammation because you're masking the symptoms of the energetic challenges going on within your system. So for me, I'm inability to speak my voice. I'm in a disempowered situation. I've got scarcity and survival going on. I've got visual impacts. I've got hurt heart. And my sacral is just on fire because of the emotions flowing. So it's a really toxic soup. And in the serious department, you can get suicidal thoughts, confusion, fever or tremors, heart rhythm issues. Withdrawal of it can lead to irritability, brain zaps, been through a few of those, dizzy, may trigger mania. So remembering that these medications are designed to be addictive and that there's rebound effects when you're trying to get them out of your system. It's a very delicate balance to walk of going up, integrating it into your system, getting to a bell curve peak, and then weaning off. And that downstream taper is a long one. And as fast as I wanted to go through it, I made sure that I listened to my medical providers while asserting my own advocacy for myself, because I'm not a trained doctor and I'm not a trained pharmaceutical person. I just know what my body wants, and it doesn't want these in my system anymore. So that was Lexapro. Then you got propranolol. Propranolol. That one was a beta blocker. So celebrities typically have beta blockers. High stress environments, yet the issues around that from an anti-anxiety perspective are a lot of impacts on the central nervous system. And when many of us humans, myself included, have central nervous system trauma, these things can settle there and you can get toxin buildups within the vagus nerve, within the overall nervous system. Oh, and you're supposed to avoid that if you've got asthma or COPD. So I had asthma, I had inhalers, and I'm taking a beta blocker. It's not really a good recipe, right? Then there was quetiapine, which is Seroquel. For those of us on that, it's classified as borderline personality disorder or the schizophrenia or the mania department. That's where the Seroquel can come in, and it brain shutdown and sleep inducer, which led to fear from my end. I'm in a state where my body, as a human design generator, my highest frequency utilization of energy is to go until I am done, and I sleep through the night, and then I get up and I go on these tasks, and then I go to bed. When I was not physically able to do these things. I had physical impacts from the work-related trauma of unpacking the discrimination and the hostility. And I'm not able to physically use my body to get through the energy. And now I'm taking this medication because it's on the clock time, and it shuts my brain down. And now my body doesn't really want to go to bed, so I'm getting tremors and shakes and nervous system impacts, and then I'm going to bed, and then I'm waking up and having to present date and age myself, remind myself of where I'm going, get to work, do the thing, jump back into this trauma of unresolved discrimination that went on for years, and no one would have an open conversation with me about what was going on. And I did not want to, at the time, label myself as anything more than what was going on, which was discrimination and hostility in the workplace and retaliation because of speaking my truth. That was what was going on. And so I'm taking these medications that did lead to drowsiness. It led to agitation of the mood. And the person that got that impact the most was my husband. And I was not okay with it, because as it was happening, I knew I wasn't okay with it, and it was just happening. He was presently in my environment when that energy would flow through me, or I'd be re-traumatized or triggered. That was toxic. That was just so toxic. Serious and rare events that I had. Involuntary movements. I had it. In my face, my tongue, my limbs. Limbs I checkmarked 3 times when I was going through this, because my hands, as people would probably label like fibromyalgia, that's like the closest thing I thought I could get to, is just like this feeling of electric shock running through my fingers and not being able to just sit still, like how irritating that was. Those things can be permanent. I kind of wish I would have known that before I even started the medication. Yet, it is what it is. Neuroloptic malignant syndrome, NMS. It's rare but life-threatening. You can have rigidity. I had rigidity. I had to have a rigid schedule, right? Confusion. I had a lot of confusion. Like, did that thing already happen, or do we have to go through all of these events to have that happen? Is today the day that my employer's going to do something, or where am I at in this reality? Oh, no one is even thinking of this as a present moment reality. They just think it's my mental health. No, that led to toxic behaviors. You can get diabetes or metabolic syndromes. You can have weight gain, elevated blood sugar, or the lipids, irregular heart rhythms, suicidal thoughts, especially in young people. And what's classified as young? Teenagers who are probably getting prescribed Seroquel. That, my heart is with you all. On a toxic environment, in a challenged way of being around parental figures and societal programs that you don't really know if you're subscribing to in this life. It's really hard to weave that balance and bridge. Yet, the hypertension of dizziness, that happened, and then going through the withdrawal of having insomnia, nausea, or agitation if stopped abruptly. I know that I went through nausea, and when I did some very intentional detoxification of my brain, rewiring, and multidimensional healing, this was probably the biggest one that I had, was brain fog, of letting go, just letting go of the fact that I took these medications, that it was a part of my journey and a part of getting me grounded, versus having mania or hysteria get worse from where it was by speaking my truth. And for something as so minute on our journey in life as a job, an ego identification, that was a very difficult deprocessing period because brain fog kicked in a lot. I would do fascial maneuvers and heal through certain traumas, and boom, it would stir it up in my head, and I'd be out for like 15 to 30 minutes, have to get myself back up and go. It was almost like taking the medication again when it would circulate through my body, when moving the trapped toxins that were built up and the emotions that were associated with that. It was not cute and it was not fun. And when the root of that is how we treat each other as humans because of our identifications, y'all need to do some work on your own, because I will not, in my future present self, be accepting someone's projection of false beliefs and programs based on an extremely toxic environment. Now that I understand how that kind of energetic transfer works, like, nah, I'm just like not accepting it. Like, I thought, things are going to be different when I go back into that environment because I'm different. Nah, the work culture at the city of Tacoma is still just as jacked up and toxic as it ever was. And it's worse outside of it, y'all. Anyway, I also took risperidone or risperidol. It's used for psychiatric and behavioral conditions by balancing dopamine and serotonin in the brain. Things like schizophrenia or bipolar disorder, irritability, and autism. It can lead to things like anxiety. It can lead to PTSD. It can lead to OCD. And then dementia-related behaviors, or Tourette's. I'll do a future video about dementia-related behaviors, because that's really, really touching to me, about my experience with it personally, as well as the gift I was given by 3 grandfathers going through that experience. And then a lot of things in the central nervous system, GI, weight gain, mood, serious but rare, you can get those repetitive movements, rigidity, sexual dysfunction, impacts to cholesterol, things like Parkinson's disorder, which are basically muscle stiffness, tremors, or slowed movements from nervous system impacts, and that can be built up of toxins. So just remember that things like Parkinson's are not a death sentence. You can work through those and heal yourself. So yeah, I think with that, that's a lot. This is a long video, yet that is indicative of how problematic Big Pharma is in the pharmaceutical industry that is designed to keep humans addicted, to masking the symptoms versus resolving the root of the issue. Get to the root, heal the root, heal for good. You have the power as a human, as a being, as a soul, as a spirit, to embody and heal whatever past wounds, environmental toxins, or inflammation that is in your body that is leading to chronic health conditions. I wish you nothing more than a journey of empowerment and self-rediscovery of what your truth and healing capacities are as a human, to unlock and unearth your innate human gifts and abilities, bridging more than just what it means to be a human in this life. I wish you my love, light, and blessings on our journey together as we work to create new ways of being, living, and systems, while the old ways that no longer serve us die off, just like the ego identifications of yesteryear. Bye-bye for now.